Ladies, gentlemen, possibly wacko flipper at some point, welcome to my Phobia application. To give some brief context before diving right in, this application was inspired by Fire Emblem. To quote Wikipedia, quote, Fire Emblem is a fantasy tactical role-playing game franchise developed by Intelligent Systems and published by Nintendo, unquote. Within the Fire Emblem, there's different games, some taking place in different worlds or continents. Generally, the game takes place in sort of an old-timey feeling game. People travel by horse, however, there are fantasy aspects added such as Pegasus, dragons, and magic. When I was young, my brother gave me the 8th game in the trilogy, Fire Emblem The Sacred Stones, which I'm quite nostalgic for. Playing it again recently inspired me the content of my application. In the Sacred Stones, the protagonist, Erica, has to flee from her home nation due to a once allied nation, Grotto, attacking. Shortly after, she finds her brother, for whom she had started searching for since she'd fled home. However, they discover that Grotto is trying to destroy 5 sacred stones housed across the nations, protecting the world from great evil. In the end, they manage to stop the destruction of only one stone, but defeat the great demon king in the process. Despite this, there are many references to the war throughout the game. Many misled soldiers, innocent civilians, the people only looking to do good end up dying in the process. In terms of theme, the Sacred Stones would most closely align with the concept of the path to hell is paved by good intentions, which could be interpreted alternatively as even if you intend to do good, you can still do bad. For my application, I've created the backstory and even fleshed out some ideas for a Fire Emblem game with a setting based upon the Sacred Stones. Thanks for watching my application, and I hope you find it entertaining. In the game Fire Emblem Trek of Terror, the concept of the game is, well, what phobia is fears. Every level faces a new challenge, that being the specific fear that the players face in that level. What I love creating about this game idea is the lore behind it. Phobos is a great land, founded less than 100 years ago. Before, it was mostly unorganized villages, but due to the sheer volume of developing culture and the growing need for governing, a man who would later be known as Lord Phobos stepped up and united people by calling for government. He led the social revolution that started governing systems across the continent. People were sick of the lawlessness in the land, so they willingly followed his rule. He had 11 children who would all go on to rule over new lands, factioned off the great mass of Phobos. Lord Phobos' genius wasn't just in his ability to rule. He was also a notorious magician, and once he came into power, he discovered many different types of dark magic. However, he hid it, and locked it away with a blood seal in his castle, so that it would never be discovered. Only those bearing his blood could unlock it. However, he only told one person of this tale ever, his mistress. Feeling detached from his own family due to the stresses of fatherhood and ruling a continent, Phobos grew a new trust in a servant who worked for him. She was his secret lover, and the mother to his illegitimate son. Despite attempting to be something of a father figure, he couldn't hide it and be an active part of his son's life. Several years later, Phobos passed away, willing different clusters of the continent to his 11 children. This was a period of change, as the children had different ideals and goals. However, it's mostly irrelevant to the story. Phobos' illegitimate son had a child at a young age. However, he was emotionally unprepared and left. His daughter grew up poor, and later had her own son. Her son, Abel, was far from perfect. He wasn't known to be greedy, but years later, Phobos' illegitimate son returned, then shared the story to the family he didn't know. No one held resentment. No one truly cared. But Abel did. With a vengeance, Abel acquired work at the royal castle Phobos lived at and attempted to locate the magic. Once he did, he came to a stall. He had never used magic. He was naive, short-sighted, idiotic. He wanted to find this magic so he could prove his namesake to the throne. He wanted fame, he wanted glory, he wanted luxury. But he didn't know how he could explain this elaborate story to anyone, or what consequences his crimes would get him. It's because of this foolishness that he was manipulated by a psychopathic dark wizard obsessed with chaos named Unas. Unas had the knowledge to use this magic, and with their alliance came a potent force. The spells that Lord Phobos had discovered were actually prophesied across multiple religious texts. Simply decoding any of the spells was a chore in itself. What Unas discovered alongside Abel was that every time these spells were activated, they became more potent. Using a spell would make the next one even more powerful. These spells would eventually become to be known as Phobia curses. When a Phobia curse is activated, it creates a burst of engulfing energy. It seeks out a concentrated source of dark energy and explodes. This causes whatever spell is being casted to affect undead creatures, such as zombies, skeletons, wolves, and spiders, to take on an altered form of the fear, while the world itself is engulfed in chaos. For example, the first spell casted was a Nyctophobia spell. The world became engulfed in darkness for several hours, and the creatures fought had night vision. The only way to stop the spell was to defeat all the evil entities affected. Now the setting is in place, but how does this all connect? Well, two young princes of different children that Phobos fathered, older than Abel by only a little, were training at the time the first spell was casted. By complete luck, they ended the first disaster. From then on, they migrated following sources of concentrated dark magic. This was seemingly random, and for months they could only barely keep up with the swarms. This is where the player comes in, the you. Your father began studying these patterns about a year ago, but his worsening sight prevented him from continuing. You began to piece together information about the dark spells through religious texts, and by the 10th, you were predicting precisely when, where, and what the next spell would be. You hoped to warn the party stopping these evils during the 15th spell, as you worried about increased strength. However, instead of warning them, you get caught in the crossfire. It's because of this that you become a part of the good that tries to stop evil. But can you truly stop it? In Nyctophobia, the world went dark. Many were filled with genuine terror, such that they couldn't bear the nighttime ever again. In Monophobia, people could no longer see each other. The loneliness lasted only an hour, but the pain would drive someone to never leave their loved ones again. In Pyrophobia, the earth would be scorched, and some would never again walk on the bare earth without flinching. Following are other phobias played out by the recorded round. However, for the sake of time, I won't cover them in depth. In the 15th chapter of the game, you join the fight against evil. Unas, however, already had set plans into place to stop the good doers. He sets Abel as the figurehead, one that denounces the royal family and calls people to his side. Instead of cooperation, the people of the once unified land of Phobos become again divided. Now, instead of guessing where the next fight will be, the heroes need to concern themselves with the new army, an army that can join forces with the power of the Phobias. Without further ado, I present to you Fire Emblem, The Trek of Terror, Chapter 15, Anthophobia, The Fear of Flowers. In Chapter 14, Pistanthophobia, you approach the location of which the heroes lie. When the phobia curse is activated, the monsters in the area, densely packed and acting evil, the huge, begin to echo doubts into the heroes' minds. The heroes begin to grow paranoid that their friends will now be their foes. Their voices are haunting. They chill the bones of those that hear them, and those who were best friends begin to fight. Upon entering the scene, you enter as a neutral, not as a friend. You manage to direct the group towards the true enemy. Once they prevail, they begin to question your background. Having already predicted the details on the following spell, you convince the group how to act next. As a result, they title you their strategist. Up northeast in Phobia, Abel, who has gone deranged, his ego practically exploding from his new following, talks to Unas about the soldiers he's sent to ward off the group of good doers. Unas hopes that if they are defeated, the phobia curse will engulf the world in its entirety. Chapter 15 starts shortly after the Pistanthophobia curse. 3 days pass where minor skirmishes reach you and the group of heroes. All are defeated relatively easy. However, after receiving the news, Unas fast-tracks the casting of the phobia curse. When Anthophobia is activated, the creatures you face are engulfed by flowers. When in the sunlight, they move faster. When near a body of water, they grow stronger, and together they multiply. On top of this, the flowers can wilt and give off poisonous gases when approached. They can die or wilt by being looked at, and they can even grow, wrapping around people. More of Abel's troops arrive, and a true chaotic battle breaks out, fending off both good and evil. But due to your excellent strategy, you manage to stop them with minimal loss. For future chapters, the group worries about not just a dead foe, but a live foe as well. Anyways, to wrap up, that's all. Hopefully this was relatively entertaining. Something I'd say I excel at is creativity. Practicality doesn't always apply to my overkill ideas, but nonetheless, I've had fun creating this application, the lore, the setting, and the future for a hypothetical Fire Emblem game, inspired by Phobia. Usually I have these crazy ideas, but I never have a reason to give them some image. I'm glad I got the opportunity, and thanks for watching my application. Coolio.